Welcome to Celestial Insights, a weekly podcast that brings the stars down to earth. I'm your host, astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks. My purpose is to provide practical, unique, and insightful guidance to help you navigate the energies of the week like a boss. Hello, this is Celeste of Astrology by Celeste, and on this episode, I will discuss the astrology for the week of July 26, 2026. The theme of this week is the Doomsday clock, and there are three big things I'd like you to think about as you navigate this week. The first thing I want you to be aware of is that Saturn stations retrograde at 14 degrees of Aries today, Sunday, July 26th. When a planet stations, its symbolism becomes very loud. From our perspective on Earth, it appears that it comes to a standstill in the sky and starts moving backwards. It's an optical illusion, but what happens is it's closest to Earth in its orbit and it intensifies the energy. And if you have anything in your chart right near 14 degrees of Aries, you've probably been feeling this energy. Retrogrades pull back the tape. They reveal what's been hidden underneath the surface, exposing cracks. Saturn rules institutions, governments, authority figures, corporations, the elderly, structures, laws, accountability, and long-term consequences. It's called the Greater Malefic. Saturn often symbolizes restriction, loss, failure, delay, and karmic reckoning. Now, it's also earned success for hard work that has been put in. We need Saturn. Now, Aries, on the other hand, rules conflict, war, competition, military action, and individual will. Saturn is in the sign of its fall in Aries. Aries wants to go fast. Saturn wants to go slow. So when you put these two together, we see the consequences of aggressive actions surfacing. Watch for scandals, resignations, firings, investigations, or leaders being held accountable. There could be major stories involving military leaders, government officials, executives, or powerful institutions. One fascinating detail about this station is that it stations near the fixed star Alpharos, a star associated with liberation, release from captivity, and escape. So notice if you hear stories about prisoners being released or convictions overturned, pardons granted, or legal situations finally reaching a turning point. Pay attention to high-profile criminal cases over the next couple of weeks because Saturn moves very slowly, so it's going to be on that 14th degree for several weeks. Something I'm watching for is to see if something like Ghislaine Maxwell could be part of the news cycle by getting a pardon or something like that. I think we're going to see our public attention shift to the growing cost and consequences of this war that Congress was never consulted with to get involved with. Yet Pete Hegseth is coming to them this week asking for another $500 billion. Now, this station is especially significant because Saturn is opposing the U.S. natal Saturn. So we, as a country, are in a Saturn opposition. Our natal Saturn's in the 10th house, symbolizing the executive branch, leadership, and the nation's reputation. And transiting Saturn is moving through the 4th house, which is the opposition party, the homeland, housing markets, and those outside of power, including rebels and dissenters. So this suggests an escalating confrontation between the executive branch and political opponents. Saturn remains retrograde until December 10th, and then it stations direct at 7 Aries, So whatever story starts getting exposed now, it'll be continue through the rest of the year. Look to your chart where you have 7 to 14 Aries. This area of your chart is getting 2 more coats of paint. Saturn has already moved over it, and it's going to back it back up. There can be a 3-part story where you start to see things at a deeper level. And then the last Passover, when it's direct again, will be the psychological integration phase. When I presented last year for Kepler College, one phrase I wrote down was bans on certain people mixing and mingling. So notice if you see anything about that, please send it to me if you do. Looking at the chart for Washington, D.C., Venus in Virgo sits prominently at the top of the chart. Venus in Virgo categorizes, separates, discriminates, and sorts. Venus is applying to square Mars. This feels like categorizing, separating, discriminating, and sorting information about financial themes. Venus rules money. We may be seeing something about conflict around information, like where was this $1 billion spent? Where was that $1 billion spent? The receipts don't add up is something you are going to be seeing at work potentially if you deal with accounting. In your own life, maybe you'll get a receipt and it's like, wait a minute, this said it was X amount of dollars. Why is it this much? You get your credit card statement. There's a charge that you weren't expecting. The overall tone of this station is tense. I would not be surprised to see major investigative journalism emerge over the next several weeks, publishing an expose about the failures of the Iran war, the enormous financial costs, military setbacks, humanitarian devastation, and what is being done to the earth. The Saturn retrograde often reveals what the institutions have tried to hide. I call this transit a royal mess. It looks like we're beginning to understand the true long-term consequences of decisions that will take years to clean up. Another developing story around the war in Iran is the widening regional conflict. The Houthis have expanded their role by imposing a naval blockade on Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia was sending oil a different way from a different waterway. So this is increasing pressure on global shipping routes and energy markets. Saturn often is associated with scarcity or limitations. And if these disruptions continue, restrictions involving oil, shipping, transportation, or fuel prices could become increasingly important over the coming months. There's also the threat of disruptions in communication systems as Iran is targeting AI infrastructure in the region. So hold on to your hat. This is not a cheerful transit. This podcast is supported by tools and practices I use myself. One of those is Solar Fire software. Whether you're an astrology hobbyist just exploring charts, an enthusiastic student, or you have a full professional practice, Solar Fire is such a powerful companion. It doesn't just store charts, it animates them. You can move forward or backward in time and watch transits, progressions, and timing techniques unfold in real motion. I customize chart layouts, keep my client notes organized, and run reports I use all the time. It's deep enough for advanced work, but still approachable when you're learning. You can use my code Celeste15 for 15% off at alabe.com. The next thing I want to make you aware of is that on the same day, July 26th, the North Node moves into Aquarius while the South Node moves into Leo. The lunar nodes always move backwards through the zodiac, so we move from 0 Pisces into 29 Aquarius. while the South Node moves from 0 Virgo to 29 Leo. This begins a new 18-month chapter that will last until March 26, 2028. This is the axis of collective liberation versus personal sovereignty. Aquarius represents society, communities, networks, technology, humanitarian movements, collective responsibility, and the future. On a physical level, it rules the circulation, calves, and ankles. Something as simple as stretching your calves and ankles regularly can be a practical way to work consciously with this symbolism. The North Node expands whatever it touches, so society is going to become increasingly focused on collective problems rather than individual concerns. I called this transit F Your Feelings, and I did a video for Delisa Hawking. It's on her YouTube channel, and I'll put a link in the show notes if you want to listen to that. That sounds harsh, but it captures the energy. As collective pressure grows, fewer people will have emotional bandwidth for individual drama. The situation unfolding in the Middle East has the potential to ripple through the entire economy. Energy supplies, shipping lanes, fuel prices, inflations, and resource availability could become larger collective concerns. I grew up in the energy crisis of the 70s, another period when Chiron was in Taurus like it is now, and there were restrictions on gasoline purchases, and people could only fill their tanks on certain dates based on whether the last digit of their license plate number was odd or even. Taurus rules resources and Chiron exposes the wound. Similar concerns around scarcity and limitations could emerge before the end of this year. So just be aware. And while the North Node expands Aquarius, the South Node drains Leo. Leo rules royalty, celebrities, entertainment, sports, leaders, ego, creativity, performance, and cultural icons. The South Node represents release, depletion, decline, or karmic endings. So over the next year and a half, we may witness the fall of false idols, narcissistic collapses, inflated egos exposed, powerful leaders losing influence as new leaders emerge, major changes throughout sports and entertainment, and questions around monarchy, leadership, public figures. If he hasn't already stepped down, I expect King Charles to step down from the throne and give it to Prince William, as he has health concerns, and that would be so in line with this energy. Leo is also associated with fire, heat, the heart, and the upper back. So pay attention as you see significant royal stories near the ingress. It may not be the royal family of England. I think there also could be changing leadership in the Middle East or other places in the world. The transit speaks to the broader theme of narcissistic collapse. Leaders can only maintain an illusion for so long before reality catches up. And as we move towards the full moon, I expect more information to emerge about the realities in the Middle East and the widening gap between what's really happening in terms of the messaging and what's going on the ground. And it's impossible to ignore what's happening with the climate. Europe is experiencing devastating fires. Canada is battling wildfires. Severe storms are impacting multiple regions around the globe. So weather events are becoming more frequent and more costly. Aquarius governs humanity as a whole, and as the North Node enters this sign, collective issues become impossible to ignore. Climate disruption is not a distant concern like it was when the movie The Day After Tomorrow came out. It's becoming a part of our shared experience. The nodal shift is asking us to think about not what only affects us personally, think about how interconnected we are and how decisions made today can ripple across the planet. The last thing I want to make you aware of is that we have a full moon at 6 Aquarius on July 29th. This will be the first full moon since the nodes shift, making it especially significant. It gives us our glimpse into the collective themes that are going to be unfolding over the next 18 months. A full moon occurs when the sun and the moon stand opposite one another in the sky. Symbolically, the sun represents our conscious awareness and purpose, and the moon is our emotional world, instincts, and subconscious. During the full moon, everything is illuminated. Things that have been hidden come out into the light, emotions run high, stories culminate, and we gain clarity. Full moons are times of celebration, completion, and release. Something reaches maturity. We recognize what is working and what is no longer serving us, and it's a good time to let go of what's not serving us. So notice what Aquarian themes come to your conscious attention. This full moon is intense because the moon has just separated from Pluto retrograde in Aquarius. Pluto's at 4 Aquarius and the moon is full at 6 Aquarius. Pluto brings material up from the underworld. It reveals what has been buried, hidden, denied, or suppressed. It exposes corruption, manipulation, abuse of power, bribery, secrets. Expect major revelations around powerful groups of people. Hidden information may surface. There could be investigations, exposés, whistleblowers, or significant conversations around corruption and accountability. Now, opposite the full moon, the sun is conjunct Jupiter at 6 Leo. Jupiter has just gone Cazimi, making it exceptionally strong. It's just been reborn. A Cazimi occurs when a planet goes through the heart of the sun, and it's one of the most favorable conditions for that planet. Jupiter themes are amplified. Justice, law, judges, universities, religion, philosophy, publishing, wealth, generosity, and influential public figures. With Pluto opposite during this conjunction, we may see stories about those prominent individuals on display. As well as Jupiter rules abundance, Leo rules gold. So notice if there are any stories about gold or banking or significant financial events. There's also the symbolism of death and rebirth. So sometimes an important public figure will pass away that represents this energy. It can also be a very lucky day for some individuals. Adding another layer of tension, Venus in Virgo forms an exact square with Mars in Gemini. Venus and Mars began their current cycle when they met in Capricorn back in January, and now we're at the opening square, a point of friction, adjustment, and conflict. On a personal level, relationships can become strained. Lovers' quarrels, disagreements, power struggles, and communication breakdowns are possible. Leo energy can make people act from ego, become more defensive, and be more attached to being right, while Pluto intensifies emotional reactions. Both Virgo and Gemini are ruled by Mercury, and Mercury's direct now, so there can be a lot of communication. Some people may find themselves having arguments publicly or feeling exposed within friendships, groups, or organizations. So there's a tension between wanting harmony, Venus, and feeling compelled to speak uncomfortable truths with Mars. On the world stage, this is going to be a dramatic and transformative full moon. Large groups of people may experience significant change. Organizations can undergo restructuring. Governments or institutions may face growing pressure as hidden information surfaces. Climate continues to stand out as an important theme, And with increasingly severe weather events, and there can be one at the full moon that could be very much about fire expanding with the sun conjunct Jupiter in Leo, a fire sign. This is a beautiful full moon to ask yourself where you've been holding yourself back. The sun conjunct Jupiter invites you to shine more brightly. Leo wants us to create, lead, and express ourselves with confidence. Pluto asks us to confront our fears. Where are you afraid of being seen? Are you afraid of criticism? Afraid the crowd will say boo? Afraid of standing out? This full moon invites you to release those fears and step more fully into your own light. Pay attention what comes to your conscious awareness regarding friendships, communities, organizations, or groups you belong to. Something may become crystal clear that allows you to release an old identity and embrace a more authentic one. Each full moon belongs to a larger 27-month lunar gestational cycle where we'll have activations every 9 months. And if your chart is activated, you may notice a topic having turning points along the way. So the new moon of this cycle was on January 29th, 2025, where the sun and the moon were both at 9 degrees Aquarius. The first quarter moon, 9 months later, the sun was in Scorpio, the moon was in Aquarius, both at 6 degrees on October 29th of 2025. Now we're at the full moon, sun in Leo, moon in Aquarius, both at 6 degrees on July 26th. 9 months from now, the last quarter moon will be on April 28th, 2027, both at 8 degrees, sun in Taurus, moon in Aquarius. So think about, was there anything related to an Aquarian topic? Or if you look at your chart, what house does early degrees of Aquarius fall in? Was there any new story around the new moon, January 2025? Think about 2 weeks on either side. Then think about October 2025. Was there a turning point in that story? And now think about at the full moon, what is revealed related to the story? The theme of this week is the Doomsday Clock, and it's a symbolic clock created in 1947 by the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists to represent how close humanity is to global catastrophe. It was originally designed to measure the threat of nuclear war, but today it reflects the growing risks posed by climate change, AI, biological threats, misinformation, and escalating geopolitical conflict. I keep thinking about this symbol because the North Node enters Aquarius and then starts moving towards meeting Pluto. They're applying to each other, and it's exact on November 17th, 2027. Aquarius rules humanity, science, technology, innovation, and the collective. And Pluto brings massive transformation, exposes what has been hidden, and often marks periods of profound change. As we move through this 18-month cycle, it can feel like the collective clock is ticking. The higher expression of Aquarius asks us to respond not with fear, but with innovation, collaboration, and a recognition that the choices we make now will shape the future for everyone. And people are rising up. They're pushing back against these data centers and things. So don't feel like it is inevitable that we're on a path of destruction. There could be some big turning points or changes that lead us into a better way of being. If you're looking for a meaningful gift or a little something for yourself, I highly recommend Otter Spirit crystal bracelets. They're beautiful, high-quality pieces that I wear every day. Each bracelet comes with a card explaining the stone's intention, correlation with the zodiac and chakras, and a mantra, making them both gorgeous and educational. Use my code Celeste20 to save 20% off your order, or Celeste 30 to save 30% on offers over $99. They're a wonderful way to bring a little more intention and beauty into your day. On Sunday, the word of the day is fallout. The moon enters the sign of Capricorn at 9:43 a.m. Pacific time. The sign rules governments, big business, the elderly, knees, structures. It's an earth sign. Think about mountains with Capricorn. It's a great energy to get grounded, practical, and plan for long-term success. Saturn stations retrograde at 14 Aries at 3:56 p.m. Pacific time, pulling back the tape so that you can see what's underneath. Someone in QC somewhere is going to get a call about a test that failed or something like that and be like, oh crap, I have to go into work on the weekend. The Capricorn Moon will square Neptune in Aries, both at 4 degrees. Neptune is retrograde. I wonder if the test specimen is smeared or something like that for the person who has to go back to do some kind of test or measurement. The North Node enters the sign of Aquarius. The South Node enters the sign of Leo at 8:46 p.m. Pacific time. On Monday, the word of the day is shame. The Leo sun is opposite Pluto retrograde in Aquarius, both at 4 degrees. And it's trine Neptune at 4 degrees of Aries. And the Capricorn moon will square Saturn retrograde at 14 Aries. This gives themes of shame about a mistake that has been made that you're embarrassed about. It's like, how could I have forgotten to put this solution into the bioreactor? And oh my God, that's why it didn't grow or what have you. The Leo sun is sextile Uranus at 4 degrees of Gemini. So notice how the sun is pinging off every single one of these aspects of this mini grand trine in the sky because they're all at 4 degrees and moving very slowly. It's like ping pong, something's exposed with Pluto. Confusion is revealed with Neptune. There's disruption with Uranus or an awakening. The Capricorn moon is opposite Mercury at 17 Cancer. And now we're going over the old territory now that Mercury is direct. So they're looking at the results of the experiment they were doing last week, and they forgot to add a key ingredient. And now they're realizing it, and they cannot believe it because it makes no sense. Logically, Mercury was retrograde, and it's symbolic of people being mentally confused, forgetting things, messing things up, and all that kind of stuff. And we're walking over the old ground for the next couple of weeks. On Tuesday, the word of the day is network. The Leo sun is semi-square Venus in Virgo, and the Capricorn moon is trine Venus in Virgo. So this can be a great opportunity to network with someone at work because the moon is in Capricorn, Venus is in Virgo. They're both earth signs. The moon enters the sign of Aquarius at 9:45 p.m. Pacific time. So pay attention to what you notice. So when the moon moves from 29 Capricorn to 0 Aquarius, it can be themes of moving from more cautious or depressive type thinking about what's going on right now to thinking about the future, seeing things from a higher point of view. Maybe this is when you get over the mistake that was made in the lab. On Wednesday, the word of the day is KABOOM. I got the song So Anxious by Genuine. This is the day the Aquarius Moon squares Chiron and Taurus, both at 0 degrees. So we'll get some information about something that's collectively impacting some kind of wound around resources, health, or wealth. There's a big scandal going on right now with the cyclospora. People are getting explosive diarrhea. It was tracked to Taylor Farms, a big producer, and their leadership went to the White House, and voila, 4 days later, all of a sudden there may have been a mix-up in the testing for Taylor Farms, that they got a false positive was claimed by the company, and they said the FDA apologized to them. Well, now that story is changing because people are putting a lot of heat saying, hey, what's going on here? Because Taylor Farms donated a lot of money to the president. Did they pay to have this happen? So that's a scandal. So we'll see what comes from that. Venus in Virgo forms an exact square with Mars and Gemini, both at 21 degrees. This is explosive energy. Consider avoiding conflict on this day. This is the day the moon meets Pluto retrograde at 4 degrees, so maybe something comes to light about that story. And Jupiter Cazimi, where the sun meets Jupiter, is at 8:17 a.m. Pacific time. This is considered the luckiest day of the year. Jupiter is the greater benefic as it meets the sun. They connect, this beautiful creative force, which gives it more energy and starts it on this rebirth cycle. And notice what happens for you. It's at 6 degrees of Leo. So if you have anything around there, it could be real lucky. Maybe get a lottery ticket. If your company, like your department, buys lottery tickets, make sure you're in it in case they win it this week. The full moon is at 10:35 a.m. Pacific time. All is revealed. Notice what light is shed. On Thursday, the word of the day is GRAZE. The Aquarius moon makes a yod in the sky. First, it's King Kong's Mercury at 18 degrees of Cancer, and then it's King Kong's Venus at 22 degrees of Virgo. So it's a really wide sextile between Mercury and Venus, but it's still there. And you can think about the fact that the moon is at the tip of it. And to me, it's like you graze someone slightly with your arm, could be something that comes up with this, at the salad bar. And then you turn and you look at each other and it's like, ooh, sparks can fly. And maybe you meet someone new with this Cazimi if you're single and ready to mingle. On Friday, the word of the day is witness. This is the first time the moon will meet the north node in Aquarius in this cycle, both at 29 degrees. So just pay attention to what you're noticing, what friends you're talking to, groups you're finding interesting, organizations that catch your eye. Maybe you find something you want to volunteer for or donate your time or resources to. As the moon enters Pisces at 8:13 a.m. Pacific time. Pisces is a mutable sign. It's water energy. You can think about being in flow. The Pisces moon squares Uranus at 5 degrees of Gemini. So this could be a group of people experience some kind of awakening, religious fervor, disruption. Could be a stormy time in certain places. Saturday, the word of the day is float. I got the song It's Raining Men by the Weather Girls. Not much is happening in the sky, but Mercury in Cancer is semi-square Uranus in Gemini. This feels like thunder and lightning, and you have to put your umbrella up. But this can also be a great day to go to float, one of those float tank things, or take a bath and just drift and dream and take it easy. I always like to just kind of slow down for the Pisces moon. So that's it for this week's episode. Feel free to email me at celeste@astrologybyceleste.com with any astrology and action stories, or let me know how the daily themes are playing out for you. Take care, and I'll catch you next week. Thank you for listening to Celestial Insights. To learn more about my work, please visit my website, astrologybyceleste.com, where I offer personal readings, horary consultations, cosmic coaching, group events, and classes to help guide people to higher levels of fulfillment. You can also find me on Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and Facebook at Astrology by Celeste. If you enjoyed Celestial Insights, please help others find the show. Follow, rate it 5 stars, or write a nice review. I would so appreciate it. I'm astrologer, coach, and intuitive Celeste Brooks, and I'll be back next week.